How do you figure they start to integrate him, Jeff? Do you imagine they'll use him much on the court next season in particular with some of the other bigs they have in the fold there, considering Aron Baynes might return? Or do you think this is going to be like a longer-term development type thing?
I think it'll be a longer-term development thing. I think he's got to mature, and I think it's going to take some time, and I think Brad will make sure he earns it. And the great thing is you don't need him. You got Tice, you bring Baynes back. You don't necessarily need him, but we know how injuries occur. You know, Tice goes down this past year. It would have been great to have a guy like Robert Williams come in for energy. And again, if he plays with energy, he can be a beast. But he's got to play all the time. And I talked to one Texas A&M player about him extensively, and that's what they told me. They said, listen, if this kid, he's got all the natural ability in the world, but if he gets it and how to work and how to stay locked in both on and off the court, that's going to be the key. Who comes with him here to Boston? Who's around? Again, if it's Al Horford, they're in good shape.
From now on, I'm Robert Manning, and I'm wearing a huge metal chain, so anytime I walk through a doorway, I can just lift up and start pulling up.
And then the first thing you do, go back and get Jay King back. Challenge him to and just post him into oblivion.
Maybe my arms will grow too.
Yeah, he's gotten soft with the Athletic. He's getting that sweet that subscription money. No, he hasn't been in the gym. I saw the media gave. You can take him.
So let's get into this Celtics Blog podcast with Sam Sheehan, who directed the mock draft as we went into this week. And we were looking at deep guards, maybe some 3-and-D guys who could have fallen to the Celtics deep into the draft at 27. Maybe they go outside the board and jump way up to the front of the draft. That ultimately didn't work itself out. But I don't think what ultimately happened was on anybody's mind. And a guy who you had 12th in our Celtics Blog mock draft falls all the way to 27th. So my first question is, do we feel great about the fact that a guy with those kind of tools fell all that way? Or are we thinking, why'd that happen tonight?
A little bit of both. I was so surprised that he was when I saw him drop all the way there, I really thought the Celtics were just going to go right by him and pick someone else, because I thought that usually when something like that happens, there's there's information out there that we don't know about, stuff that might have turned up in the interviews. There have been rumblings about Robert having some off-court type of problems and stuff like that, but and then the Celtics took him, which makes me think that that this was the right fit for him. Like the Celtics do their homework. They're one of the hardest working organizations. They didn't have Robert Williams in for workouts, and they still took him anyway because they felt like he was that much of an upside pick. And I do think that he did fall into kind of the perfect situation for him. He is, if the book on him is that he is a guy who has some difficulty, personality-wise, maybe working hard, attitude issues, any of that stuff. He's going into a culture with Al Horford, hopefully with Marcus Smart, with Jaylen Brown, with all of these guys, Brad Stevens. I mean, this is a perfect situation for him where he doesn't have to produce right away. He can learn the system. He can learn how to be, a professional at the NBA level, and he can really, just develop at his own pace. And while he's, an excellent value pick, he's also a huge upside pick. I mean, this is a guy who really could be like an NBA starter for years to come, and the Celtics got him with a deep first-round pick, at which point, when you're drafting in the first round, you just want, to get a rotation guy there. So the fact that the Celtics got a guy with real starter upside, and I don't think that that's like a, that's not an exaggeration. He really could be a starter in the NBA. It's just magnificent. And
this is a very long sword with two sides that we're looking at here. Literally 7'4" wingspan, one of the best best lengths in the draft out there, especially for a guy who's 6'9". So I think that makes up for some of the height concerns he might have playing the center position. I was going through some of the numbers tonight, numbers that make you just go, wow. Like the fact that he only did 17 pick and rolls last year because he was playing out of position. Maybe another reason he falls a little bit here, not playing completely in his element after he went back to school for a sophomore year, which I think surprised some people. But he also comes back and puts up a 27% defensive rebounding percentage, which is pretty ridiculous. And you see that he's capable of putbacks and great offensive rebounding as well, which is still something that matters, as we found out with the Celtics last year. 2 years ago, they don't rebound at all. We go, oh, rebounding's overrated. But then they come back this year, and they're one of the best rebounding teams in basketball. And they went on a run where they were pretty much undefeated for the whole season when they were winning the rebounding battle. So we found out that matters. But free throws also matter. And there's a guy who shoots 54% at the line. So, two sides of this coin at every turn with the stats on this guy.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, on the one hand, you kind of look at, the book on bigs. We're at a really interesting time in the NBA where, in particular, point guards and bigs are sort of, there's a lot of them out there in the NBA. And, it's sort of seeming like unless you've got some of the very best, bigs or some of the very best point guards, it might not be worth using assets to get a, sort of a middling one of those guys, because you can get them. There's so many of them out there. You can usually get a pretty good guy on the cheap. Or, for example, look at the Celtics getting Aron Baynes for the room mid-level exception last year and how well that worked out. So, on the one hand, it seems like, it might not be a great idea to sort of use an asset like this on a big player. That said, you are getting cost control on the one hand, and on the other hand, Robert Williams does project as one of these guys who could be one of those elite players. You look at the two types of bigs that really succeed in the NBA. One is just these outrageous, athletic, freaks of nature, these unicorn guys like, Joel Embiid, Anthony Davis,
Porzingis.
Porzingis, or maybe mobile guys, guys like Al Horford or Rudy Gobert, who are just defensively anchor, but also are kind of mobile, a little bit more mobile than you might otherwise think. And then the other type is your guys like Clint Capella and DeAndre Jordan, who are just rim running, hyper athletic, protect the rim, true bigs that don't necessarily space the floor, but also necessarily don't have to because of their ability in pick and rolls, their ability to switch and sort of blow up pick and rolls and survive on the perimeter with their length and fast twitch muscle. And I think that Robert Williams definitely projects as the latter. I think he could definitely be one of those guys who could switch onto the perimeter. And that's really seems to be where the NBA is going. There's the old Bill Simmons thing. I have some of the Bill Simmons stuff, I don't know. I think he might have lost some of it in his older age. But this one I think is true, that you look at the finals and you see, could this guy have played in the finals? And I think that there is value in that. And I think that Robert Williams, the answer to that question is yes. He could have played in the finals.
The Clint Capella comparison is fascinating because we are in an era where we're all looking at who could stay on the court against a team like Golden State. And we're looking at a situation now that's twofold. Right now, how can you beat Golden State? And then in the future, how do you create your own wave going forward? And I think a big man, it can be part of both of that, even though that would seem to go against conventional wisdom. Clint Capella played fantastically against the Warriors and almost looked at certain points like he was pulling Golden State out of their element, forced them to play JaVale McGee, going into bigger lineups more. He put up 10 and 10 against Golden State in that series, managed to play 30 minutes a game, which is, the most telling stat of all there. Now, I think we have a while to go before we see Williams reach that point where he's even on the court, but if he's able to be the first step toward a team being able to maintain bigger lineups, as I think the Celtics are hoping they can too going forward, seeing how they played last year with more switching, more wings, even more center play. Williams is going to be a very useful tool for them to, one, compete now and compete going into the future, though. I do wonder how much playing time he's going to be able to carve out right away with some of the other bigs on this roster, especially if Aron Baynes returns.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think that they don't necessarily need to play him, right? I think that that's kind of the benefit of being a team that has these guys ready. I mean, the Celtics are 1 year away from probably losing Daniel Tice because he's going to hit a restricted free agency. The Celtics likely aren't going to be able to afford him. I think he's proven himself to be a well above minimum player in the NBA. And, if I hope the Celtics can return Aron Baynes, I think that they probably will if they make it a priority. So, if those guys are back, I think Robert Williams could get some minutes as the fourth big, depending on where he ends up falling with him and Yabusele and, who ends up where. But I also don't think it would be the worst thing for him to, get some of those main reps and sort of, get some of, those that sort of repetitive those looks. I mean, one of the last times the Celtics drafted this low, I guess it would be Jared Sullinger and Fab Melo, but before that it was Avery Bradley. And Avery Bradley didn't have much of a role when he first, stepped on the court for a competitive team.
I do want to hit on that point, though, because we have seen the Celtics use Maine as a developmental driving force for a lot of the players they've drafted in the past. And we do look back at some of those guys, the success stories obviously being Avery Bradley. Terry Rozier spent a little bit of time up there. We even seen a guy like Jabari Bird this year come up and play some great minutes out of Maine with him on the two-way deal there. But then I look back on some of the big men that they've sent through there. Fab Melo played so great up there, just didn't translate. Jordan Mickey, we loved him in the second round, never quite worked out. And those are, probably lower-rated guys than a Robert Williams, but I also look at Gershon Yabusele, our favorite, still hasn't carved out a role on the team, though. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at a big man who maybe has concerns about his dedication to the game, as we spoke to Jeff Goodman earlier today. There were stories about him maybe not even wanting to leave his hometown, his small hometown, to play AAU and even get into professional basketball. So I look at all those factors and some of the past stories of Celtics trying to develop big men through their G League, and I get a little bit concerned about Williams' development here if he's not going to have time to play with the team. Do you have any of that?
I guess a little bit of that. I think probably actually the person who profiles the closest to Robert Williams, who's been a Celtics pick in the past, is probably Jared Sullinger, who also found himself dropping quite a ways on draft night and found himself in the 20s when he wasn't expected to be there. Jared Sullinger was much higher. He was like projected to be like top 3 or 4 going into the night, but then injury concerns kind of his back got red flags. So doesn't seem to be an injury concern thing. But I think that Robert Williams has a lot more pedigree than any of those guys that we brought up. But beforehand, a lot of these other bigs have been kind of shots in the dark. Your Jawan Johnsons, your Fab Melos, your Jordan Mickeys. Some of these guys were more just shots in the dark. This is a guy who was pretty much considered to be a consensus lottery pick. I think a lot of people around the league, a lot of smart people around the league. I think it was Jared Weiss had a really good tweet earlier tonight of The Athletic where he was talking about, he talked to 3 different GMs and they had all had different expletives describing how they felt about the Celtics getting Robert Williams. So I think that, I'm not as concerned about that. I think it's more going to be about, getting him settled into, getting him around the vets and in an environment where he's playing hard. I think this is one of the reasons they really want Marcus Smart to be back on the team next year. I think Marcus Smart's like a very good mentor for these young guys, just because of, he does play so hard and just having him around.
As we saw at his camp the other day.
He took a charge on a kid running to the pizza line. Like, how could someone not learn anything from that?
I also saw him teaching them those wacky dribble moves he does out on the perimeter. We're going to have a lot more kids coming up the way Marcus Smart did if they're all going to his camp.
Yeah, it's incredible. So I really think that, Williams, he's just... I really think that there's a role for him too, because I think he does play in a very interesting way. He's not very skilled. He's not going to, post you up. He's not going to use dribble moves to get to the basket. He's not much of a shooter. I don't expect him to improve much. He's pretty much only going to be flushing it, but he is a passer. He's a pretty good passer, and I think that that's something that's going to be interesting, especially that gives him an extra dimension. We've seen how the Celtics use penny touches in their offense. It's very important to collapse the defense, re-expand it, and find the shooters. And I think even though Robert Williams isn't as much of a shooting threat, he can still collapse the defense, make those recognitions on those passes. I think he's going to be a really good player for the Celtics on a rookie scale contract, that was ended at the end of the first round. So it's going to be only a couple $1 million, at the end of these 4 years. It's going to be a cheap contract. I think at the end of his 4 years, he's going to be making the same money Yabu's making this year. So a very cost-effective thing, and it can mean a lot for the Celtics in 3 years to maybe have Rob Williams on the team. 3 years experience, maybe a starting level center for them at that point, under that type of money. So a really good value pick. I really don't think it could have gone any better for the Celtics on this draft night, especially because neither the Kings or the Grizzlies went home with Luka Doncic.
Yeah, it was just incredible to watch him drop and drop and drop. And it got to 25, and I'm seeing Portland, I'm seeing the Lakers, and I'm seeing the 76ers in rapid succession. There were 4 teams below that I knew were pretty set at big. But those 3 teams pop up, and all of them have concerns on the interior. Philly needs a guy to back up Embiid. Los Angeles has no one in the front court signed right now. And Portland, of course, is very guard heavy. And all 3 of them take different guys. And 27 comes along, and I'm like, all right, is there something we're all missing here on Williams? Is the Celtics going to fall right in the line and pass up on him too? But they go with him, and it felt very strange to finally just see a move that everyone was rooting for come through with the Celtics. Because usually it goes the complete opposite direction in that scenario. I do like the points you just made, though, the cost efficiency. Danny Ainge said tonight that when Williams reached that 20 area, they were thinking about moving up so they could get him. And nothing came together. Ultimately, they have to sit and wait, and him falling to 27 helps with the cap. As we know, every little bit of money that it can take off helps in that capacity. He also said Brad Stevens' affinity to having those bigs who can pass out on the perimeter and get touches on the perimeter and be comfortable passing from that area. A big reason they took him too, and that's a big part of Stevens' offense as a whole and something that's going to bode well with him going forward. But he said he's got to learn the system, he's got to earn that time, and that's still my biggest concern going forward with him is how he's going to be able to break into the system when there's so many guys in front of him.
Yeah. You gotta be able to play defense under Brad Stevens. We've learned that. And, if Robert does not learn defense, it's going to be tough for him. He's someone who, he projects as a center. That's his ideal position.
Yep.
Maybe they might get some minutes for him at power forward alongside Al Horford, which might, sort of release him as a, sort of a shot blocker from the weak side, which could be pretty terrifying. But eventually he's going to need to learn to quarterback a defense, which is one of the most complicated things in the NBA, to be a center barking out the orders and sort of lining everybody up. And it's going to be tough for him. He's going to need to take some hard knocks, and that's why I think a redshirt year for him, sort of going to Maine, getting, 10 minutes a game here and there, I think it was going to be good for him in the long run.
Yeah, let's not underrate how hard that can be, though, that back and forth between Maine and not having a consistent role on the roster, especially for a guy who obviously has dedication issues or at least some sort of issues showing a consistent commitment to the game. I do wonder how much his situation at Texas A&M and some of the turbulence there might have played into that too. Perhaps not the best situation for him to play his college ball, and we know there was a lot of inconsistency around him down there, as Goodman told us earlier too when we spoke to him on the draft show. I gotta tell you about my simple contacts experience. It's not mine, it was really my mom's. She's losing her glasses left and right, and if she cannot see anything, if she doesn't have her glasses, it's ridiculous. So she's leaning on contacts to get her through her day, whether she's at work or running us around to different appointments and places and just keeping the house going. She can't see anything without the contacts, so either she's losing her glasses or she has to go out of her way, her busy day, to get contacts, which is just such a stupid thing to throw your day out of a loop for. So simple contacts. It's the most convenient way to renew your contact lens prescriptions. It's the 21st century way to do it, because We're on her phone all the time, even her, even though she's of a different generation. She's still on her phone all the time, so she'll have the Simple Contacts app on her phone. She'll see it and say, oh yeah, I gotta renew my contacts, and it takes less than 5 minutes to do a quick vision test if you get the app for yourself and you want to start using that. I remember she did it was so quick. It was probably less than 5 minutes. And on the other end, they have a licensed doctor review it. You get your renewed prescription and it comes right to your door. You just reorder your contacts right through the app. You don't have to go to a doctor's office or get an appointment, which could cost over $200. This costs just $20 to do a vision test with Simple Contacts. It's nothing. Standard shipping's free. And best of all, they have a promotion for you on the CelticsBlog podcast. So all my contact wearers out there, you're going to get $30 off your contact. $30. I've done a lot of reads. I haven't seen $30. You just go to simplecontacts.com/banners. This is the Banners broadcast, so go to simplecontacts.com/banners. Or just enter the code BANNERS at checkout. Either way, you're going to get $30 off your contacts. That's crazy. So this isn't a replacement for your periodic full eye health exam. This is just for your contact prescriptions. It can make it a little bit easier. Help you see 20/20 and renew your prescription. They don't write completely new RXs or examine your eye health, but they're just gonna make your life a little more convenient. That's what Simple Contacts is all about. Hence the simple.
He's a freak athlete. He's got an NBA body already. When he plays hard and when he's active, he's really good. He's not a super skilled guy at all. Can shoot mid-range. He was at a camp I was at last summer, an Under Armour camp, and all the college counselors were there, and he kind of bailed out after the first day, which was a red flag to a lot of people. If you want to play, usually you fight through injuries, and he kind of shut it down early with all the NBA guys in attendance. So I think, he's a guy that's going to hopefully will give him energy, hopefully will give him a rim runner who you can play pick and roll with. He can dive to the basket and finish. He can. He's just got to be locked in. And as I tweeted, the best thing for Robert Williams is going to be Al Horford. That's going to be the best thing for him. Honestly, if Al Horford takes him under his wing and they put that locker right next to Al Horford, which is the first thing they should do in the practice facility and at the Garden, this kid is not going to fail. He's a good kid. He's engaging. You're going to love him in terms of his personality. Again, he's just got to mature. He's a small-town kid who never really wanted to leave Oil City. Even for AAU, he didn't want to play, and I'm going to tweet out my story that I wrote on him prior to the season. He didn't want to leave, didn't want to play for the Houston Hoops for the big AAU group because he was comfortable. It was a one-stoplight town, and that's what he is. He's a small-town kid.
What other takeaways do you have tonight? Lots of moves impacting the Celtics. I look at three in particular. The Bucks with Dante DiVincenzo as they try to continue to make a leap in the East. You like that one, huh?
I don't like that one. I'm glad. Let me just put it this way. I'm glad the Jazz and the Bucks made the picks they did. I'm glad they took DiVincenzo and Grayson Allen off the board. If the Celtics had picked Grayson Allen over Robert Williams, I would be in a jail cell right now somewhere.
Yeah, he went very early. That got taken off the cards very early at 21. Yeah. Colin Sexton ends up in Cleveland. Pretty surprising with Michael Porter on the board there. Porter falls all the way down to 14, which was the stunner of the night. But Sexton, think that has anything to do with LeBron, or is that just them saying take the best guy there and whatever happens, happens?
Yeah, it's interesting because, they didn't, I think you could make the argument there were some better upside guys there. I mean, I think if you were really drafting for upside, I'm not a huge Kevin Knox guy, but I think that he was one of the guys on there at that point that really would have given them, a lot of upside there. I think if they had wanted Sexton, I think they could have traded back. I don't think that they would have gotten themselves in trouble by doing that. If someone, wanted to trade up and, beat the Knicks, the Knox, or, get some of these other guys like Mikal Bridges or anything like that. But I ultimately think it's a fine pick. I mean, it was 8th in this draft. I think that I think that they're ready for LeBron to leave, so I think they are worth just making, the best player available. Well, I let me put it this way. I've always said, I've said that the funniest thing that LeBron can do could be go back to Cleveland for one more year, because he could make Cavalier Dan Gilbert pay roughly the GDP of Croatia in luxury tax bills. And I think that Dan really wants to get off this money and get out of the luxury tax as fast as possible. And he can kind of pin it all on LeBron, leaving. So we could see the Cavs, if LeBron leaves, they're going to need to blow it up with all this money they owe Tristan Thompson and J.R. Smith and all these other guys, sort of break it down. And, point guards take a little bit to develop. So drafting Colin Sexton there, giving him a year or two to take his lumps and sort of develop into, a good point guard by the time you've bounced back is, it's a smart move. I don't think it's necessarily a bad or a good move. I think what the Sixers did was very interesting as well.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about that. And it brings me back to my biggest complaint that I have about the NBA draft still. And it got going right at number 3 when Luka Doncic puts on the Hawks hat. And he's getting – and not only did he put on the Hawks hat, but I hear that he got interviewed by ESPN about playing for the Hawks. And that trade came up very quickly, the one that he was going to the Mavericks. And he's answering questions about playing for the Hawks. He probably knew at that point he wasn't playing for the Hawks. Yeah. One guy who didn't know what was going on was Mikal Bridges, who got drafted by Philly. It just never ends with Philly. They skip out on Porter because they don't want to have to redshirt another rookie, so they avoid that debacle of online nonsense. And instead, they have a guy who's not playing for them get interviewed about playing for them, and his mom works for the team. Meanwhile, they're trading him to Phoenix, right? And Zaire Smith is the guy in Philadelphia. So the 76ers, you love this. The 76ers can never stay out of negative online headlines, huh?
No. Oh, my God. First of all, I saw some people say that Sam Hinkie, because they traded back and got another draft asset, that Sam Hinkie was back in town. Sam Hinkie was not back in town, or they absolutely would have selected Michael Porter, and it would have been another guy sitting out for a year.
And there was an intense internal debate about it, as we heard afterwards.
Yeah, I have to say though, I really love Zaire Smith. I actually think it was a great trade for the Sixers. I think it was a great deal for the Sixers, but it was just absolutely brutal the way that it had to go down. Poor Mikal Bridges' mom, like, she was so happy, and it was just like, ooh, like, I know we're the team that dealt Isaiah Thomas in cold blood, but like, that was rough to see too. Doing your own coworker like that. Like, come on, man.
And let's talk about the TV event that it is, because we know ESPN and the league are really trying to hammer this in as being a TV event, and they tried so hard this year. They go in saying Woj isn't going to break the news, and then other people are following suit. There was sort of this like casual head nod about, let's make this a fun event. I think you even said like, oh, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Within minutes, Mark Stein's breaking the news. And Woj slowly starts creeping back in with these like funky ways of describing the picks, like enamored by, and like there's no way they're gonna pass up on so and so. And like throughout the night, it just became a running joke. And ESPN wasn't happy about it, but ESPN being ESPN pretty much makes it into the running joke as SportsCenter starts that night. I think they called him the Thesaurus Woj in the opener there.
God, it was so good. It was so good. Like, it was just good entertainment. I love that Jason Concepcion of The Ringer had a pretty funny tweet about Woj saying, oh, we're not going to do it. And then the second Woj sees someone else tweeting, he just turns into the Hulk, smashing through the things and just sending the pics out as fast as he can.
Oh, what a mess, though.
Thesaurus Woj was great. I mean, it would be good to, eventually. I would like to eventually get a draft where we don't know until they announce it. But
yeah, because here's the thing. I mean, us trying to break it down and analyze, like, we need to know as soon as we possibly can. So even though I think me and you both agree we'd rather just watch the TV and like know when they announce it on TV, just for the entertainment factor of it. We're always going to look at the tweets. If someone's doing it, we're going to look, and I always think someone's going to do it, because if you can do it, that's how you're making a name for yourself.
It's great. This is how old I am. I remember watching the NBA draft before Twitter. Particularly the Klay Thompson, Jimmer Fredette draft year, and I just remember being so shocked by some of the picks and like how fun it was to like see the Kings come up and know that the Kings were about to ruin the franchise, and then hear Jimmer Fredette and then see it on the screen, and it was such a visceral experience. It doesn't quite have the same pop when you're not even watching the screen. You're just refreshing Twitter at an alarming rate. You know, you see a lot more jokes, but it's not quite as fun. So maybe we'll get there eventually. But Steiny Mo had other plans. Just threw a wrench in that early, which I thought was very funny.
I gotta say, one of my secret fears is ending up with a bald head one day. It's scary. I know it's a possibility one day because 66% of men start losing their hair by age 35. And the thing is, when you start to notice that hair loss, it's too late. So, when you start to see the hairline moving north of the border, it's already too late. So you gotta be proactive when you're in your 20s, when you're in your 30s. You don't want it to be breezy up there. So check out Hims, forhims.com. They've created a solution to this issue. If you're one of the lucky 34%, I know some of my buddies got the fullest head of hair. My buddy Bino. It's probably never going to happen to him, but for everybody else, the 66%, forhims.com is your one-stop shop for hair loss, skincare, and just general wellness for men. They connect you with real doctors and medical grade solution to treat your hair loss. And what's great is that they've made hair loss optional. There's no waiting rooms, no awkward doctor visits. Like I said earlier, the way you want to do things nowadays is online. Get your health done online and fix your little problems like baldness. And it's not going to involve the snake oil pills or gas counter supplements. These are medical grade, generic equivalents to help you keep your hair. So try out Hims. We're going to give you a trial month of Hims for $5 while supplies last. Check out their website for all the details. They'll explain it better than I am. All I can say is that this would cost you hundreds if you went to the doctor or pharmacy. So check out forhims.com. That's forhims.com/CB. CB is the slash you want to go to for your promo code. The $5 trial month. forhims.com/CB. Tomorrow on CelticsBlog.com, I know Kungu's got something coming long form about Robert Williams, so we're going to learn a little bit more about him as a player and perhaps his background too. I know I'm going to be writing about some of the concerns that might be out there about him and why he fell ultimately. I know Gavoni tweeted that there might be some concerns about his knee, as well as the off-court behavior, which we talked about in the opener there. What's boiling up on the Sheehan side tonight?
We just knocked out our draft, our big board. The whole Celtics blog staff, you included, Bobby, helped out with kind of pooling our best Celtics blog players. I think
fantastic
we hit the nail on the head.
By the way,
yeah, I think we all hit the nail on the head with some of those. So Alex and I were every day, putting 3 or 4 hours into that, each one of those. So I think I'm going to take a little bit of a break now. We're going to take a look a little bit at Robert Williams, but I'm looking to do something on Kyrie Irving and Uncle Drew when that comes out. I'm definitely going opening night. Definitely going to say it's.
Will you dress up as Uncle Drew though?
As I was going to say, I'm going to have to put myself... What was Kevin Love's guy? There was Kevin Love had a character early on in the thing.
Leave it to Kevin Love to have his character forgotten. I don't even know who you're talking about.
There was It was like the first follow up. Like there was the original Uncle Drew Pepsi ad, and then they had a follow up where Kevin Love hit the court with him, which was it's so funny. It's so old.
Leave it to Kevin Love. Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
What's gonna happen to him this summer? It would be so Kevin Love for him to end up in Cleveland when LeBron leaves and just have to carry that sad team throughout the year. Whew.
They're gonna deal. If he leaves, they're gonna deal him. I think they might deal him to move some of the salary too. But maybe someone like Portland might be a fit. A team that's trying to get things together that has a lot of unwieldy money that the Cavs might be able to take back. But it's looking good. I thought the Nets and Knicks actually had pretty solid drafts actually. So. I think the Atlantic is really shaping up to be, kind of a dangerous division for years to come. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens once July 1st rolls around and we start, seeing some of, what's going on with some of these signings and what's going on. Because the Raptors, God knows what's going to happen with them.
Yeah.
LeBron is going to hold everyone hostage. And we're going to see if this Lakers super team comes together. We're going to Kawhi is kind of hanging over everything. I don't know if you saw the comments from R.C. Buford earlier tonight that they want to try and hang on to Kawhi. So,
the surprise, as they hung up on the Lakers and the Clippers today. Very different East probably when this offseason is over. I think the Bucks will still be around. The 76ers will be for sure. Cleveland probably drops out of competition if LeBron leaves, but then you got Indiana rising up in their place, I'd imagine. Good pick with Holiday on their end today, too. They picked up a very good player in this draft as well. So we'll see what the impact is going forward. Obviously, these drafts nowadays take a long time to impact the league, but there were some guys who could definitely make an immediate impact tonight.
I just want to say,
Reunion Arena in Dallas, where the Mavs and Lakers are playing tonight, was built in 1980. Now, you couldn't ask for a better facility. It's easily accessible, has all the comforts of a theater, and there isn't a bad seat in the house. But for some reason, there are those who prefer the Boston Garden. Most are those who wear Celtic green.
What is so special about the Boston Garden other than the fact that it's 1,000 years old? Let's take a look. First of all, a garden it's not. It's a train station, really. One flight up and you're on the fabled parquet floor. Now, before you get all misty-eyed about the parquet, take a closer look.